Yo guys, what's going on? Robert Warshack here, and I've got you with what are the best decks to play now that we have the buffs, the nerfs, the meta has changed. Hopefully, it actually has changed a little bit, not as much as I wanted. I wish Hunter would have gotten hit a little bit more. I'm glad that Slime Warlock is gone. I did not like sliming into Thaddeus. Summoning Thaddeus on turn 5 or 6 isn't healthy for a meta. No one likes that high roll, but MechRogue, so super popular when the expansion released, way overtuned in regards to that 4-mana duplicating card. I mean, like 60-70% of the meta was MechRogue, but now it's calmed down a little bit, but still good because Hunter went down in popularity and Druid is kind of on the rise and a lot of other slower decks are on the rise and not a lot of people are playing Starfish. MechRogue is coming back up because it's still just a fast deck. It still can just win on turn 4 or 5 with stuff like the Pit Stop, the Inventomatic, and then from the Scrap Heap if they just don't die. Mimron can just steal games. You still have Stealth with the Spider. There's still just a lot of power that this deck has, even though its replicating guy did get hit with that nerf and it doesn't run that anymore. But as of now, this is just your standard MechRogue. A lot of people are playing it and they're doing very well with it. They're playing at a top 1000. People are bringing it to Masters Towards. It's obviously a good deck. So from here we have the Rainbow Naga Mage. So there's two different forms of mage right now. There's just Sif Mage that we've seen a lot of on ladder, but a harder deck to play, but in my opinion is way better if you learn it, is the Naga Sif Mage. So this deck was brought by some of the better players, in my opinion, to this past Masters Tour. And for those of you who watched it or has seen this deck on ladder, when played correctly, this is probably the best deck in the game. It can just win. It has huge board control. It has great amounts of value. It has OTK potential with Sif, with the frozen touches. This deck can kind of just do everything, which is good. The problem is the deck is really hard to play. It's going to take a bunch of games to learn it. It depends how fast your APM is. If you like playing a lot of cards per turn, you like thinking about your turns a lot, and you want to just generally get better at Hearthstone, this is a really good deck to try to get good at because, in my opinion, this is the hardest deck to play. If you want a little bit easier of a time, you don't want to go crazy every turn with the Nagas, then you can just go with the normal Sif Mage, which I can put the code to that in the description below as well. But it just is not, it's a little bit slower and a little bit more control-y, I would say, than this Naga Mage, which like goes on the board with very powerful swing turns. So moving to the class and deck I like the least, but still a deck that's good, and it's going to be that pure Paladin. We've talked about this deck a lot in the past, so I'm not going to go over too much, but kind of power cards, as we know, is the Countess. She's insane. We also have the Horn of the Windlord with the Feast of Famine and things like that, with the Qualtaz as well, where you can just do a massive amounts of burst. I know this deck doesn't actually, I don't think it has any new cards in it, and it doesn't need any new cards. It's just good. So for those of you who have no new cards and you want a very easy deck to play, this Paladin deck is for you. I wish it wasn't so good still, but it is, and I can't pretend it's not. Arcane Hunter. This is actually a new deck, and it's pretty fun. Does a shit ton of damage, and that's because the new Star String Bow costs 1 less for each friendly secret that is triggered this game. You do have a decent amount of secrets in this deck with stuff like Hidden Meaning, Bait and Switch. You have Titan Forged Traps. This deck is really popular on ladder right now, and a lot of people are playing it, even though Costume Stinger did just get nerfed. Instead of a 2-1, he's still a 1-1. Deck's still good. Most of the time, this guy's drawing you at least 1 to 2 secrets, and he's doing some damage. So even though that this card did get hit with a nerf, the deck is still really good. You can still play it and still have a ton of success with it. Hound Hunter is still really good. That deck really isn't that new, and it's not that exciting for me, so I'm not going to show it. This deck is just as popular and will do just as well for you. But if you have the Hound Hunter build that basically the same deck we had in the previous meta, and you don't want to build this one, just want to keep playing Hound Hunter, you can do that. That deck's fine too. And of course, the new Hunter Titan is really good, and he's found basically in every Hunter deck. Moving to Drum Druid. This deck revolves around playing Drum Circle. This just gives you basically a ton of dudes with a ton of stats with Taunt. Most decks can't deal with a turn 5 30 damage on board with Taunt. Surprise, surprise. Warrior kind of can with Brawl. We're seeing actually a lot of Warrior right now, so if you're queuing into a lot of Warrior, I don't really recommend Drum Circle unless they're playing the wrong Warrior list that doesn't run Brawl, which a lot of people are doing. But nonetheless, this deck does what Druid does, and that's Scam. You get a lot of mana very quickly with stuff like innervate. The gift, which basically reduces the cost of spells in your hand by 1. Of course, you run the disciple, which makes your choose 1 trigger twice. It runs seedsman, so you can ramp, and then from there, you just play a ton of nature cards in combo with Topior, while also if any board gets left like alive, you just win. You're drum circling 3 or 4 minions, or you're solar eclipsing with drum circle or cultivation, which is a new card which gives everything +2/+2 for each treant that you've summoned this game, which most of the time this card's going to cost 0, so you can go solar eclipse and give everything +4/+4. It's just really good. It's just a token deck that also ramps, and if you don't clear the board, you lose. And it can do it like on turn between 4 and most of the time 6 is when they make a giant board that you need to deal with, and they do it very, very consistently. Oh, and did I mention they also have an early game that you need to deal with? So, really powerful token deck here. Treants are fun, and it's fairly cheap. I think there's like 2 legendaries in this deck, and besides that, it's just like rares and commons. So, I guess kind of cheap. And then the last deck that I've been playing and that I recommend personally is my warrior deck. I think this is the right warrior deck to play. This is the warrior deck that's very similar to the rendition I hit legend with before warrior got buffed, and then we pushed into top 1500 legend with this warrior deck before it got buffed. If we're playing this before it got buffed and now warrior got buffed, the deck is just going to perform better. This craftsman hammer is actually just insane now, because when you play Odin, it now triggers and gives you 7 attack immediately, instead of this like being basically counter synergy to Odin. It now is actually just synergizes with Odin. And for those of you who are interested in this warrior deck, I actually posted a YouTube video on it not like 1 or 2 days ago. We went like 6 or 7-0 with it. The deck is, and that was before the nerfs. So the deck, like I said, all right, before the buffs. So the deck is just better now, which is kind of crazy because, however, if you don't like this build, there is a ton of other players who have takes on this. Whether you want to run the fire package or you want to play the rift package, I don't like either of those packages. I think those cards are bad. I want control warrior, and this deck felt like the closest thing to old style control warriors I could get. So with that, those are my decks. Let me know what you think. If there's anything popping up that I didn't list here, feel free to throw that in the comment section below. If you have any questions, of course, the comment section's there as well. So thank you guys for watching. As always, I'm Robert Warshack. Happy whatever the hell day it is.